And I remember saying, look, if you'll just let me go, I won't tell anybody.
The man ordered Chris to the back of the RV and told him to sit on the floor and stay still.
And he gave me a stern warning and saying, look, you can't try to get anybody's attention. No screaming, no trying to escape. If you do anything like that, I'm just going to come back there and shoot you.
Chris nodded and stayed where he was. He heard the engine roar to life again. This is the Miracle Files. I'm Emily Jones.
And I'm Holly Worthington. We're two sisters who love a captivating true story, but we're also seeking more light in our lives.
So we're on a mission to find and share unforgettable, uplifting stories of God's miracles. We hope you'll join us on this journey.
This episode is brought to you by BondCharge. Visit bondcharge.com using promo code MIRACLE to show your support. Welcome back to the Miracle Files. We have such a powerful episode for you today, and it's one that I've just thought about over and over again.
Yeah. This one is intense and emotional and all the feels, but we also want to give parents a heads up. This is one you may want to listen to beforehand. There may be some graphic, scary parts, but so good.
So good. Please stick with us to the end because you will not be disappointed. Rarely has an episode affected me and literally changed me like this one has.
Yeah, same. And also we want to give you a heads up that this episode is 2 parts. If you've listened to our other 2-part episodes, you know there's a reason why we do it. And, you know, sometimes there's just 2 miracles that are so incredible, we want to give them each their own episode. So this is one of those.
Yeah. All right. Let's get started.
Let's go. It was the afternoon on December 20th, 1974. A gray-haired man paced up and down the sidewalk on a quiet street in the sleepy town of Coral Gables, Florida. He flicked ashes from his cigarette, walking back and forth, pondering his options. As time passed, the man stopped and stared through dark sunglasses at a house. He walked to the front door, then hesitated. He walked back toward the street and began pacing up and down the sidewalk again. In the distance, he heard the roar of a school bus coming down the road. 10-year-old Chris Carrier gazed out the window of his school bus, full of anticipation for Christmas. It was only 5 days away. As the brakes squealed, the bus eased to a stop and the doors creaked open. It was his turn to get off. The bus dropped Chris off every weekday at the same corner, just 6 houses from his home. His parents had no reason to worry. The bus stop was close enough to be seen from their family's front porch. Chris started the short walk home, carrying a couple of folders and an empty cupcake tray from a party they'd had at school that day. His attention began drifting toward what might be waiting for him in the packages under their family's Christmas tree. As his thoughts wandered, Chris paid little attention to the scruffy, overweight man in sunglasses who walked toward him. Silently, the man passed by on the sidewalk. But then, Chris heard the man's footsteps stop.
And then I heard him say, hey, aren't you Hugh Carrier's son? That kind of startled me. I was like, yes, sir.
Chris turned around as the man stepped back toward him, his face completely unfamiliar.
And he introduced himself by the name Chuck. He asked me, how's your mother doing? Which was common because Mom had multiple sclerosis and was just shifting into a wheelchair over the holidays. And he told me that he was a friend of my father's, had done some work with Dad. And then he just kind of had this aha moment where he said, hey, you might be able to help me. There's a party that your father and I were going to be at for Christmas, and I would love to give him a gift. I've got 2 or 3, but I'm not sure which gift he'd like the most. Would you be willing to come help me to just pick out the one that you think he'd like the most?
Chris hesitated as a quiet sense of unease settled over him, but he couldn't keep the man waiting.
And of course, as a 10-year-old kid, I didn't want to. But those were different times, and you respected every adult, especially the ones that knew your family. And so reluctantly, I said yes.
The man led Chris to a nearby parking lot where a motorhome was parked across several spaces.
And I remember just walking with him, awkward conversation, small talk, and we got into the RV. I put my things down. He let me sit in the front seat, passenger seat, and he had told me, he said, yeah, it shouldn't take us more than 30 minutes or so to go do this.
Chris didn't question the man's motives, but as they drove, he began to notice the man's demeanor shift to quiet nervousness.
So we drove out, and of course, the fact that he had referenced working with my dad led me to think we're going to be going downtown Miami, which I was accustomed to going there with Dad.
But Chris had been to his father's office in Miami enough times to know the way there. This felt unfamiliar. The roads weren't the ones he was used to taking with his father. When he saw a sign for Opa-locka, he knew they were heading north, away from where he had assumed they would go.
And I just remember thinking, well, that's not normal, but I have to trust him. He knows where he's going. He's going to his office or wherever it is he's got these things. And so I resigned myself to just realize, now I can trust him.
The man continued driving, smoking one cigarette after another, the conversation fading until there wasn't much left to say.
It quickly grew awkward because, how many things do I have in common with a gentleman who's gray-haired and weathered, a heavy smoker, and I don't know him, and he doesn't know me, and so the small talk kind of ran out probably 30 minutes or so in.
After a while, the man noticed there was a Coast Guard station up ahead.
And so he asked me, he said, would you like to stop and see the big Coast Guard helicopters? I'm a 10-year-old kid. Caught my attention. I was like, sure. And so we pulled up alongside the Coast Guard station. I remember pulling in straight. There was a fence in front of us, and we just sat there probably for a good 10 minutes or so, just looking at those, hoping that maybe one of those big, ginormous white helicopters would begin to take off, or one would be coming in. And I didn't necessarily think, what's he doing? Why are we stalling? But we sat there for a few minutes and nothing happened.
Finally, the man said it was time to move on. They continued down the road again until they pulled into a quiet, overgrown parking lot in the middle of nowhere.
Hey guys, got to interrupt real quick to talk to you about our red light face masks from Bond Charge.
Yeah, you could spend hundreds of dollars going to do red light therapy at a med spa, but the thing I love about red light therapy face masks from Bond Charge is you can do it from home, while you're folding your laundry or watching your favorite TV show at night. So easy, and no needles.
So easy.
No recovery, just consistency.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I am not great about sticking to a skincare routine, but this is one that I've been able to stick with because you only have to do it like 3 times a week, and you can do it anywhere, anytime, like you said, Emily. And even my husband has been stealing my red light face mask. So
if you haven't ordered the red light therapy face mask from Bond Charge, what are you waiting for? For a limited time, our listeners get 15% off when you order from bondcharge.com and use our exclusive promo code MIRACLE at checkout.
That's BONCHARGE.com. You'll also get free shipping and a 12-month warranty. So go now, get this exclusive offer. That's bondcharge.com with promo code MIRACLE to get 15% off.
They continued down the road again until they pulled into a quiet, overgrown parking lot in the middle of nowhere. The man reached for a map, handed it to Chris, and asked him to find a highway.
And he told me, he said, I think I've missed my turn, but I need to get something in the back of the RV.
This struck Chris as strange. Was this man lost?
It made me wonder, who forgets where they live or where they work? And so I had to resign myself to saying, all adults in my life have been worthy of my trust. So go with what I know.
As Chris puzzled over the map, the man walked through the galley of the motorhome. That's when Chris experienced a strange sensation.
I felt a quick sting in my shoulder. Came and went. Nothing like a bee sting necessarily, nothing lingering. But then it happened again. And I remember thinking, that's kind of awkward. I don't know what that was, if it was something caught in my shirt. And I turned around, looked over my shoulder, and here he was standing behind me with an ice pick in his hand.
Everything that followed happened quickly. The man grabbed Chris by the shirt, pulled him out of the passenger seat, and threw him down onto the floor in the middle of the RV.
And next thing I knew, I was on my back, on the floor, looking up at him as he got down on one knee and began to just continue to stab me in the chest with this ice pick. It's happening so fast, I didn't know what to think, and I remember just looking up at him, trying to block his hand, and he'd pull my arm away and stab again. And I remember saying something to the effect of, look, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're trying to do. I don't know why you're doing this. I'm out of words. I think I fumbled through saying something to the effect of, look, if you'll just stop, if you'll let me go, I won't tell anybody.
Chris struggled beneath the man's weight, staring into his cold eyes, wondering if it would ever stop. And then, at last, it did. The man straightened and stood over him. Chris lay there, shocked and bleeding, bracing for what was to come. But what happened next surprised him.
And he said, son, I'm going to take you somewhere, and I'm going to drop you off in a safe place. Then I will call your daddy so that he can come pick you up.
Chris lay in shocked silence. Then relief washed over him. The promise that his father was coming was all he needed to hear. He couldn't wait for his dad to get there. He desperately wanted to go home.
I knew my father would be wherever he needed to be as fast as he could. There was never a doubt of his love, never a doubt of his provision and care.
The man ordered Chris to the back of the RV and told him to sit on the floor and stay still. The man then warned him not to make any noise.
And he gave me a stern warning and saying, look, you can't jump up, you can't try to get anybody's attention, no screaming, no yelling, no trying to escape. If you do anything like that, I'm just going to come back there and shoot you.
Chris nodded and stayed where he was. He heard the engine roar to life again. As the RV began to move, Chris looked down at his dark green polo shirt, now speckled with blood. He could hardly believe what had just happened. Meanwhile, back in Coral Gables, Chris's parents were growing frantic with worry when their 10-year-old son still hadn't come home from school. Chris was not the type to run away or play pranks, and they knew it immediately. Something was wrong. They called the police without hesitation. Where was their precious boy? From where Chris sat in the back of the RV, he could see very little. He had no idea where this man was taking him.
And as time would pass, I would try to kind of sneak up and look over the dashboard, see where we were or what was going on. But of course, all the windows were higher than where I was sitting. But when I'd look over the dashboard, I could only see a limited number of things, usually trees or lights.
The RV rumbled along, passing through stretches of road with fewer sounds of traffic the farther they went.
I think we went through a toll booth at one point. We stopped at a gas station, and he again reiterated, don't say anything, don't do anything. And of course, that was back in the day when there were gas station attendants who would pump your gas.
Chris could hear the gas station attendant's voice outside the RV. If he could hear the gas station attendant, the attendant could likely hear him too. Chris wondered what would happen if he called out for help, but he remembered his captor's warning. He was too scared to make a sound.
He ordered what he needed out the side window, paid for it with cash, and we were back on the road.
As the next half hour passed, Chris considered his options.
I remember sitting in the back, and even as a 10-year-old boy, looking at my environment, looking at the situation I was in, and thinking, how do I escape? How do I get out? Who can rescue me? What are my options here? Can I overpower him? I'm a 10-year-old boy who's undersized, still waiting on my latest growth spurt that's passed me by. So no, I can't overpower him. He's a full adult. Can I outsmart him? Can I pull some kind of MacGyver tactic? No, I looked around and there wasn't anything within reach that I could grab to hit him with. But even if I did, are we going to go off the road and into a canal? The odds of me surviving any one of those options was not good. There was a realization that even though I'd been raised in church, and even though I knew the stories of the Bible and knew who Jesus was, that was a moment in which I had to shift from saying, I trust what my parents believe and I rely on their faith, to realizing I need to step up and do something myself.
In that instant, Chris stopped trying to find a way to escape. Instead, he reached for every ounce of faith that lay deep within him, and he prayed.
There wasn't anything profound about my prayer. They weren't great words. In fact, it was as simple as simply looking at the inside of that RV and praying, Father, well, you know.
As a 10-year-old boy, this was all Chris could do, and somehow it felt like enough. The RV continued down the road, which eventually changed beneath them. The smooth pavement gave way to a bumpy surface as Chris felt the RV turn onto a different road. Gravel crunched under the tires, and dust rose behind them as they moved farther away from civilization. After a short distance, the RV stopped. The man opened the door and motioned for Chris to step out. Chris had no idea where he was. In reality, the man had driven him out to the northern part of the Florida Everglades.
And he led me out, and it was just a beautiful environment, nothing but small palms and wonderful, beautiful trees. There were no homes, there was nothing out there, just a country road. And I thought, okay, this is safe, it's fine, there's nobody around, I'm not worried about traffic or anything. And I remember him looking both ways, making sure it was safe, and then we walked out. He must have walked me probably 40 or so feet into this tall, marshy sawgrass, the kind that when you step on it, it breaks. And some of the grass was well over my hips in terms of height. And we walked out to the edge where a few trees were, and he said, why don't you just sit down right here? And this will be where I'll call your dad and let him know where you are.
Chris sat down, looking briefly at the ground around him, noticing small details without thinking much about them. He began trying to estimate how far they had driven and how long it might take his father to reach him once he got the call. Behind him, the man reached into his pocket. Chris, trusting, young, naive, had no idea what was coming.
What I didn't anticipate was that gentleman pulled a small pistol from his pocket, and I think waited for me to not be looking at him, and pulled the gun right up to the temple of my head and pulled the trigger.
Have you guys seen Young Washington yet? It's the new movie from Angel Studios and the Wonder Project. It's so good. It's directed by John Irwin, who also directed like I Can Only Imagine, American Underdog, House of David. It stars Andy Serkis, Ben Kingsley, and Kelsey Grammer. And it shows what happened to George Washington before he was a general and president.
Yeah, and I learned so much about him. I mean, you think of this man who is a legend in history, but you get to see the struggles and the hard things that he went through as a young man that really shaped him into who he became, the president of the United States.
Yeah, exactly. So storm the theaters and help make Young Washington the #1 movie in America. Join the Angel Guild at angel.com/miraclefiles and become a premium member for just $15 a month. And you will receive 2 free tickets to see Young Washington yourself.
In Coral Gables, hours passed with no sign of Chris anywhere. Police canvassed the neighborhood and interviewed classmates, friends, neighbors, and the bus driver. Chris's church sent out a citywide prayer request. Family and friends searched everywhere they could think of, spreading out for miles. Vacant homes and abandoned buildings were combed through with the help of the department's canine unit. But it was as if Chris had simply vanished. With each passing hour, their hope dimmed. Deep in the Everglades, young Chris lay unconscious in the thick, swampy wilderness with a single gunshot wound through his head. For a time, everything was still. Only the sound of insects buzzing and wind blowing through the reeds. Then Chris stirred. He blinked his eyes open. He sat up slowly. The light had changed. The sun was lower, filtered through trees, and the air had the feel of late afternoon.
In my mind, completely unaware of what had happened in terms of the shooting, it was still Friday, December 20th. And I remember waking up thinking, I wonder how long I was asleep. I wonder where Dad is. And I wasn't worried. I wasn't hungry. I was still coming off of my sugar rush from all those cupcakes and cookies. Christmas was 5 days away. I felt all right, and I sat there.
Finally, Chris stood up and wondered if he should find a better spot to wait.
And I remember thinking, if Dad's going to be close, I better get out to the edge of that road. So I walked through that tall grass and got on the edge of that road, found a large rock that was probably the size of a basketball that was kind of shaped that way. And so I sat down on the edge of that dusty country road, figuring I'll wait for Dad. And of course, my father, my mother, and everybody in Miami had no clue where I'd been for the last 6 days. Because when I woke up, it was December 26th.
December 26th. 6 whole days had gone by. 6 days Chris had lain on the floor of the Everglades, alone, exposed, and unconscious. There had been no food, no water. The area around him was known for wildlife. Alligators along the canals, panthers and pythons moving through the brush. It was the kind of environment where a bleeding body normally wouldn't last the night. And yet, here this young boy sat on a rock, in the middle of nowhere, covered in dry blood, a gunshot wound to his head, and stab wounds in his chest, but alive, waiting as the sun dipped behind the horizon for his daddy. But what Chris didn't know was that his daddy had never been called. So he sat waiting and waiting.
The sun, as it went down, I remember thinking, well, Dad will have a hard time seeing me, but he'll have his lights on.
And that's where we have to leave Chris's story until next week. But truly, this story is far from over, and it deserves a whole second episode because you will not believe what happens next.
Yeah. But for now, let's talk about this episode and the amazing miracle that we just heard about. Yeah. I mean, how shocked were you when you found out that he had been lying on the floor of the Everglades for 6 days?
I think my jaw literally dropped.
Mine too.
Just amazing. I've been to the Florida Everglades a few times. And in fact, I think I may have been near the exact spot that this happened. When I was talking to Chris about it, describing where I had been before, there is a back road that goes along a canal that someone had recommended to us to go down because there were so many alligators there. They said you are guaranteed to see alligators there. And I'm telling you, we saw so many alligators, and it is so incredible that Chris survived this.
I know. Chris said that they estimate there's an alligator every 60 to 70 yards in this area. And alligators can smell blood. Like, here's this young boy bleeding, unconscious. Like, honestly, it feels like Daniel in the lion's den. That's like what it reminds me of.
It really does. In fact, Chris said something kind of similar to that I thought was really interesting. So let's listen to that.
The northern part of the Everglades is familiarly called Alligator Alley. Here, if a deer or a wild pig gets hit, they're dinner. The idea that I could have a head injury and be lying there, not much bigger than a baby deer, doesn't make sense other than the fact that I trust that there were angels on guard.
I mean, angels had to be guarding him. How else do you explain that? But God, that's how you explain it. That's the only way this is possible.
I know. And it's not even just the alligators. I mean, here's a kid. There's no food. There's no water. He's shot in the head. He's stabbed in the chest.
Yes.
Like, the fact that he survived any of that is just incredible.
Yeah. He went through some horrific things that
I know.
It's just amazing he survived those things. But
poor kid.
Also the faith of that little boy.
Yeah.
Oh, it gets me emotional just thinking about that sweet little mustard seed.
I know.
Of faith that he had. And his prayer is something that I will never forget when he just said, Father, well, you know. And I think that's just like the most sincere prayer. Like, I think sometimes we have to say that ourselves, when it's just like, you don't have the words.
That was so sweet and so innocent. And I mean, just like thinking about innocence, like, this is just a little kid.
Yeah.
He's this sweet little boy who's so loving and so trusting. I mean, he grew up in a home where I'm sure his parents were very good to him. Like, he had no reason to doubt this man.
Yeah.
I mean, those were different times. Like, nowadays, I talk to my kids all the time about stranger danger, but like, that wasn't really a thing back then.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely a different world back then. And parents, by the way, if you haven't talked to your kids lately about this kind of stuff, I think it is such a good reminder to just tell your kids, like, it's okay to say no to an adult if things don't feel right. If something's off, it's okay to say no to an adult.
I can't imagine going through this. I can't imagine what those parents went through.
Oh, I know his poor parents had to be so sick with worry.
Yeah, it reminds me of an experience that I had recently. My daughter came home one day from school and she asked if she could go play at this friend from school's house. And I hadn't met this family before, but I just decided it was okay. So she walked with this other girl to their house after school. I got the mom's phone number. And then a few hours later, I texted the mom and said, hey, like, can you send Sadie home now? And the mom responded, oh, she left 2 hours ago. And I was like,
yikes.
Where is she? And so I searched my entire house. There's no Sadie. I asked my kids, I asked my husband, has anyone seen her? And no one has seen her. And she's not the kind of kid to just like go somewhere without asking. So scary. I start to panic. Like, where is she? And I thought maybe I could check her other friend's house. And so as I'm running there, I'm literally out loud crying to God, please have her be there. Please have her be there. And I got there and fortunately she was. And it turns out she had seen her friend on the way home and she asked her friend's mom to text me and her mom forgot. And so, innocent mistake, but I just remember that relief that I felt. But I also was shaking for like 2 hours. I couldn't stop thinking about that. We just interviewed Chris. Scary. And I couldn't stop thinking about the parents who have to go through that. They go looking for their child and can't find them.
Yeah.
So heartbreaking.
And those little children that have to go through horrible things. Like, we have people comment sometimes on social media or videos or whatever, just saying like, how does God love his children when he lets them suffer? And, it's interesting to me. Like, we do believe God is with those children and we do believe he comforts them when they go through really awful things.
Yeah,
and
he was with Chris for sure.
He was for sure with Chris. When he woke up and went to the road, he had no idea that 6 days had passed.
Yeah.
He didn't even realize that he'd been shot.
I know. He had no pain.
Yeah. He was shot in the temple and is blind in one eye from the shot. And yet he still didn't know what had even happened to him. It's just incredible.
And God is so merciful that even in our really hard moments, he shows up for us.
Yeah. Doesn't mean they're not hard.
No.
But he's there.
Yeah.
And Chris shared something else about miracles that I thought was so powerful.
I believe that miracles are a wonderful way of God reaching into circumstances in real life in which we feel powerless. I can't overpower, I can't outdo, and I can't save myself. I have to rely on Him, who is going to be there with a smile and bring me through, bring us all through. I think there's a lot of miracles we just don't see. I think we need to train our eyes to understand He's been doing and will continue to be doing a lot behind the scenes to build us up and to hopefully deepen our affection for His presence and love in our lives.
I love that.
I know. Such a beautiful perspective. And y'all, this is not the end of the story.
No.
Surviving 6 days in the Florida Everglades is already an unbelievable miracle, but there is so much more to his story.
Yeah.
So make sure you come back. Before we end, here's a quick preview of part 2. Chris's father and uncle suspected a man named David McAllister.
His alcoholism had gotten in the way in the work he was performing, and so my father was the one who had terminated him.
They informed the police, and officers went to David McAllister's home to investigate.
There was no fingerprint evidence, no blood samples, hair samples, no evidence. He'd had a full week, effectively, to clean his vehicle.
Thank you for joining us. If you have a miracle to share, contact us at themiraclefiles.com or find us on social media. We release new episodes each Monday.
Yeah, so don't forget Miracle Mondays. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube for amazing video content as well.
Join us next time as we discover more of God's miracles. And don't forget to look for His light in your own lives.